to recap the definition of physicalism. The only stuff that exists is stuff that follows physical law. And it is true that modern scientists tend to be physicalists. Modern scientists tend to be physicalists, but physicalism is sort of defined in terms of modern science. It says that if something exists, it will turn out to follow a set of deterministic laws, or deterministically bounded laws, like quantum mechanics. Everything will follow laws. Everything will be mathematically describable. Everything will be repeatable. If you create the same conditions over again, you'll get the same result. Everything depends on sensing. Everything is sensible. To a physicalist, if you tell me that something exists, but no one could ever sense it or ever sense any of its effects, then the physicalist will say, that means it doesn't exist. That's the definition of existence. It can be sensed. So we contrast this with Cartesian dualism. Two kinds of being. Mind, which is not sensible, and it's not physical lawish. It doesn't follow physical law. Actually, I shouldn't say ish. Not physical law. It doesn't follow physical law. Physical law is not part of the operation of mind. Because physical law applies to mass and mass energy, or matter and energy, or just matter. What Descartes calls body, or you might call matter, law following. Matter is sensible and law following. It follows physical law. You can sense it. It's replicable. So, for Descartes, There's another kind of stuff. It's the matter that we're all familiar with, and then there's this mind. Here's Descartes' argument. First, there's an observed fact. Sit down and write out a list of the properties of mind, a list of mental operations. Then sit down and write out a list of physical operations, physical properties. I have to divide the room in half and have one half of the room write down things that are features of mind, things that are properties of ideas, kinds of ideas, things that can be found in a mind. Then, on the other side of the room, you write down all the things that can be found in body, in matter, in your body. You will come up with two totally disjoint lists. There will be no item that appears on both lists. Any item on the mind list will be absent from the body list. Every item on the body list will be absent from the mind list. When you conceive of an idea, when you have a hope, when you feel doubt, when you deny something, when you affirm something, those are all mental operations. But you never see a lectern or a coffee cup or a piece of cheese or any other physical object affirm or deny, doubt, hope, or conceive. When you think about body, we have things like weight, inertia, that is resistance to moving. Size, shape, texture, hardness. And all these physical properties. These only apply to mind in terms of metaphor. You don't have a mind that's literally hard. You don't have a mind that literally has size. You don't have a mind that literally has weight or inertia. Mental operations don't have these. if two things have no properties in common, they must be two totally different kinds of stuff. And as a general rule, we define kinds of stuff by their properties. How do you know that cheese is not ferroconcrete? Well, it doesn't feel like ferroconcrete. Unless it's a really old cheese. So we tell the differences between kinds of stuff by their properties. How else would we do it? So if two things have no properties in common, there must be two different kinds of stuff. When you combine these two, this fact with this rule, we get the conclusion Descartes' conclusion is that mind and body both exist as separate beings, and each can exist without the other. Descartes thinks he's proved that your mind can go on existing after your body dies. Because your mind is not part of your body, and it is not something your body does. Okay, now I want to sit with this for a minute, because I think this is fairly sensible. I mean, I'd be hard put to tell you what's wrong with this. And this seems to make sense to me. Two kinds of things have different properties. They're two totally different kinds of stuff. But this seems awfully weird. So there's something wrong. There might be something wrong with the combination. Now, you don't have to agree with what I'm going to do next, what I'm going to say next. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to knock down this argument. And this is philosophy. You don't have to agree, you don't have to disagree, you just have to know this argument and the counter-argument that I'm going to make. And if you, on the exam, if you want to make other comments, if you want to criticize my argument, that's potential extra credit. That's potentially a bit more credit. So, what I'm going to do is try and break this down. Try and break down this logical inference. And I'm going to try and do it by analogy. We have, and I think this will also tell us something about the relationship between, the real relationship between mind and body. Here. But I'm going to put something else over here. Dots. Let's compare the mind-body argument, Cartesian dualism, to dots. What's the essence of dots? Movement. Now, think of all things that can be said to be true of a dance. Grace, energy in terms of rapid movement up and down, jumping around. Humor. Do humorous things in dance. You can be clumsy. Now, if we follow Descartes' logic, it would seem to follow that dance and body both exist as separate beings, and each can exist without the other. So you can have a dance without a person dancing. Does that sound weird to you? That we can have a dance. Look, here's a dance. It's a wonderful dance. It's much better than I can do, but it doesn't need a body to have a dance here. Okay, that should strike us as weird. So there's something wrong with this argument. Now,
does he believe our minds always existed?
He might. He was Catholic, so I think he believed that souls were created and then placed in bodies and then existed forever. But I guess souls would have to be created in that system, because first is God, God makes the universe, and God makes the first man, so that would make the first soul, and then outer souls come along later. The mind-body problem, the most famous problem, it's a very, very famous problem in philosophy. It's an important problem because it has implications far beyond Descartes. But it's not really a problem. That's just a name. What it really is an argument, and it's a killer argument. It kills Cartesian dualism stone dead. If you remember the rabbit on the nuclear weapon, the rabbit might be confronted with the nuclear explosion problem. The mind-body problem is a problem for Cartesian dualism, the way a nuclear explosion would be a problem for a rabbit sitting on the casing of the bomb when it went off. How many rabbits do you think could solve that problem? So, Mind and body communicate constantly. Your mind has an enormous degree of control over your body. Your mind is continuously exerting control over your body. Even when you're asleep, your mind is controlling your body. Sleep is something your body does, and your brain controls sleep. So mind and body communicate constantly. Your body is continuously feeding information into your mind. In fact, you cannot be aware of anything at all unless your body passes that information in. Certainly, if you bang your knee or you feel something, like I feel this pen in my hand, the body is telling me that. If Descartes is right, they can't do that. Mind and body have no properties in common, according to Descartes. Mind has ideas, has affirmation, denial. Body has extension and rate. Can you affect a physical body without doing something physical to it? And the answer is no. The situation is like, imagine you're at a park and there's a guy with a little radio control box. Okay. And there's an airplane flying around. And you, oh great, you're controlling the airplane. Can I try? Well, I can't. You're controlling it. How are you controlling it? I'm controlling it by radio because it responds to semaphore. You guys know what semaphore is? You ever see people waving flags like this? Now, that airplane responds to the waving of flags, but nobody is waving flags. This person down here is sending radio signals, but the airplane does not have a radio receiver. Is it possible that the plane, that he's controlling the plane? No. Suppose sign language to a blind man, or giving verbal instructions to a deaf person.
What?
Verbal instructions to a deaf person. You've got someone out walking a maze, you're in a little town, you know what a maze is, like the hedges and stuff. You're in this tower in the middle, and you're yelling out instructions, and the person's following the instructions, and he's deaf. There's a logical contradiction here. By Descartes' thesis, his thesis, the thing he's trying to prove, the thing he believes, mind and body have no properties in common. There is nothing about mind that has anything to do with the properties that the body has. So if the body responds to pressure, mind cannot exert pressure. If the body responds to sound, mind cannot generate sound. If the body responds to heat, mind cannot generate heat. That's a physical property. Mind can't do it. And if they have a property in common, then his argument falls down. Mind and body are not separate. So if his thesis is true, mind and body cannot touch each other. If mind and body can communicate, his thesis is not true. So Descartes is wrong. The mind-body problem kills Cartesian dualism stone dead. Here's his reply. And it is a weird reply. He didn't say, this is how they communicate. Here's his reply. He wrote, I have found the place where mind and body communicate. It's called the pineal gland. Sort of like in the middle of the head. Hideously ugly person. Every one of us has a pineal gland. It's a little gland in the middle of the head. And Descartes says, look, I figured out what this gland does. This is where mind communicates with body. All right. Suppose someone tells you that a deaf person can hear things, and you say that if he can hear things, he's deaf. And they come back and say, no, 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 he's completely deaf and he hears stuff. How can a deaf person hear stuff? How can someone who cannot hear, hear? And they say, well, he does it in my living room. Is that an answer? No. No, it's not an answer. How can an airplane without a radio receiver receive radio waves? Does it in the park? No. Okay. Cartesian dualism contains a logical contradiction. Cartesian dualism contradicts our experience because it has two tenets. One is that mind and body are totally separate. Two is that mind controls body and receives information from body. Those two things cannot both be true. There's an internal contradiction in Cartesian dualism, and it kills Cartesian dualism stone dead. To believe Cartesian dualism is basically to believe in square circles. It's basically to believe a logical self-contradiction. The pineal gland reply completely fails. It doesn't even begin to be an attempt at solving the problem. Okay, any questions about that?